Hi guys, I'm going to show you how to create the color change app using Xcode 11. So I'm going to click on create a new project. I want this to be an iOS and I want to do a single view app. I want the user interface to be storyboard and not SwiftUI, so just make sure you have that checked. You don't need these boxes checked. I'm not going to create a Git repository on my Mac. I probably will want to store this in a place where I can find it. Right now I'm just going to keep it on my desktop. It's good to save your apps in a folder where you can find them easily. And I'm going to create it. Alright, so just to get you a little bit familiar with Xcode, this right here is the navigator pane, and this is like the big picture of everything in your app. Then we have the editor pane, where you can adjust things, you can edit, and then we have the utility pane, which would be like a close-up of the different elements in your project. And I think you'll be able to see that when we go into the storyboard. So the storyboard is going to look like the screen of your iPhone. And on this screen you can drop in different elements from the object library. So this plus sign right up here, if you hover over it, it'll tell you it's the library, and this is the object library. And so from here I'm just going to bring in a label, and I'm going to bring in a button. So right now these elements are on our main storyboard, but we haven't connected these elements to our view controller. And let me just pop over real quick. Our view controller is where we do the coding, the logic behind the elements that we're putting into the storyboard. So what we need to do is we need to open up another window so we can connect from the storyboard to the view controller. So I'm going to hit this plus sign here. And so here I have my main storyboard, and here I have my view controller. And I was able to open up another tab with this add editor button right here. Let me close and show you one more time. So right now I'm in my view controller. I'm going to pop this open, and then I highlight one of them and just have your controller in one of them, and then I can change that to the storyboard. So right now I'm toggling the utility pane off so we can get a little bit more room to connect these. When you're connecting elements from the storyboard to the view controller, you want to hold down Control, you want to click on the element, and you want to drag it over to the view controller. And I'm just going to call this label 1. For outlets, like a label, and you're usually going to connect that above view did load. And for element that's an action, like the button right here, again we're going to hold down Control, we're going to click on the button, and we're going to drag it over here below view did load. I'm going to change it to a UI button. I don't want the type to be any, I want the type to be UI button. I'm going to call this color change. One thing you'll notice about when I'm naming these elements is I'm using something, or excuse me, I should call them objects. One thing you'll notice when I'm naming these objects is I'm using camel case, meaning that the first letter of the name is going to be lowercase. There's going to be no space in the name, and the other, like, the first letter of the other words is going to be capitalized. We just call that camel case. It's a good habit to get into when you're coding, because other people will be able to understand your code better, and also you'll remember how you named it as well. So good practice to get into. And again, I'm going to connect that below view did load. So outlets above view did load, actions below view did load. It's a good habit to get into. Alright, so in here where we've connected the button, We called it color change button. And it's going to have this curly bracket, and that curly bracket is going to end right here. So anything we put in between those two curly brackets, that's what's going to happen when the button is pressed. And what we want to happen is we want the background color to change. So that's going to be part of the view. So I'm going to start typing in view, and it will autofill for me, and I can just hit enter. And what part of the view do we want to change? I'm going to put a dot. We want to change the background color. Oops. You have to spell it right, but if you spell it right, it will autofill for you with background color. Now we want to assign a value to this background color. So I'm going to do space equals space. When there's one equal sign, you know you're assigning value. And the value I'm going to assign is going to be a UI color. And I'm going to say dark gray. So view.background color equals UI color dark gray. So when that button is pressed, our background should change to dark gray. We can test that out by hitting the play button up here. Right now I picked iPhone 11. I hit the play button. This will run the simulator, and basically our app will show up. And when it loads, we can hit the button, and the background color changes to dark gray, just like we told it to. So it worked. I'm going to show you how to edit some of these elements a little bit. If we click on one of the objects we put in there, we can change what it says. I might just give it a title of color change app. So that will show up at the top of our screen. Maybe we don't want this to say button, maybe we want this to say click me. So again, we highlight it, and then I'm on this like shield tab, it's the attribute inspector, and we can change the elements of it. So I'm just going to say click me. And maybe we want to change the background color a little bit just so it's very visible. Maybe a bright color. Make it larger. Yeah, so it's a little bit more visible. So my challenge for you would be to continue on with this app and see if you can make it change to different colors every time you hit this button. Maybe I'll give you a little bit of a head start on that. So one thing I might do is I might make a variable. So var count. So I created a variable called count, and I set it to 0. And then we might want some if statements. So if you say if count, and then we'll do a double equal sign. Double equal sign means the value of count is 0. We're not assigning a value, we're checking the value. So if we hit this button, I'm going to cut this, and I'm going to paste it inside of our if statement curly brackets. So if count is equal to 0, and we hit this button, then the background color will change to dark gray. Let's put an else if statement on the end. So we have this if statement. It has a curly bracket here and a curly bracket closing it up. We've put our code that we want to happen inside of those, and then after that we can type in else if. So then if count is equal to 1, we probably want something else to happen. I'm just going to clean this up a little bit, make it look a little bit nicer. So maybe we want to change it to a different color. One thing that's nice is you can just UI color dot, and you can search for which colors they have. So it could be black, blue, brown, clear, cyan. That's an interesting one. Let's see what that's all about. So if count is equal to 0, we're going to be dark gray. If count is equal to 1, we're going to go to this cyan color. but we never change the count. So it's always going to be 0, so it's not going to scroll through to this other one. So somewhere we have to add 1 to this number count. So maybe we'll give it a try after these if statements. So we'll do count. And I'm going to do, we could do count equals count plus 1. So we're taking the count, we're adding 1 to it, and then we're assigning that the value of count. That's one way to do it. There is a little bit of a shortcut. You can do plus equals 1, and it's just shorthand for adding 1 to count. And if we run that, we will test it out and see how it's going. So we click it once, it's dark gray. We click it another, it's the cyan color. So see if you could figure out how maybe you could continue scrolling through, and maybe even loop it so that somewhere you'll have to reset the count. So give it a try. See if you can do that on your own. Let me know if you have any questions. Thanks a lot for watching.